1992, Honda released a superbike priced at over $50,000, twice as much as any other high-performance motorcycle of its time. But what shocked the world wasn't the price, it was what lay inside. A V4 engine with oval pistons, 32 valves, twin connecting rods per cylinder, and electronics years ahead of their time. This bike wasn't just a machine, it was Honda's bold declaration, "We can build anything." But there was one thing they couldn't build: commercial success. Only a few hundred NR750s were produced. It didn't race, it didn't break records, and no one really understood what it was meant to be. So why did Honda build such an insane motorcycle? And how did a machine that cost as much as a supercar vanish like a dream? In the late 1970s, Honda faced a major challenge in the 500cc Grand Prix racing scene, where two-stroke motorcycles completely dominated the field. As a company deeply committed to four-stroke engine philosophy, Honda refused to abandon its core values just to win races. However, racing regulations limited engines to a maximum of 4 cylinders, instantly ruling out any V6 or V8 configurations. In response, Honda's engineers came up with a radical, never-before-seen idea: a V4 engine with oval-shaped pistons, each long and flat, capable of housing 8 valves and 2 connecting rods, essentially mimicking the performance of 2 regular pistons combined. Theoretically, this was a legal way to achieve V8-like power without breaking the rules. The result was the 1979 debut of the NR500, the world's first motorcycle to use oval piston technology. However, its extreme complexity quickly became a fatal flaw. The bike was too heavy, difficult to control, prone to mechanical issues, and simply couldn't keep up with the lighter, simpler 2 strokes. After several humiliating seasons, the NR500 was withdrawn from racing, and the entire NR project was shelved indefinitely. But for Honda, failure did not mean surrender. Nearly a decade later, the company revived the oval piston concept, not for the racetrack, but to create a street-legal superbike that showcased engineering brilliance more than outright performance. The goal was clear: not to build the fastest motorcycle, but the most advanced one, a machine that would leave anyone speechless at first sight. The project was named NR750, and after years of secret development, this engineering marvel officially launched in 1992. This bike wasn't just expensive because it was rare. It was expensive because every technical detail was a bold statement of innovation. It all starts with its heart, a 747 cubic centimeter V4 engine, but with a twist: oval pistons. Instead of the traditional round pistons, Honda engineered elongated oval pistons, nearly twice as long as a standard piston. This allowed each cylinder to function like 2 smaller ones, featuring 8 valves and 2 connecting rods per cylinder, for a total of 32 valves and 8 connecting rods across the engine. In theory, this was a legal way to simulate a V8 engine while staying within the 4-cylinder racing regulations, dramatically increasing combustion surface area. Combined with a dual ECU PG-MFI fuel injection system, the NR750 could manage fuel and ignition with astonishing precision. The rev limit was set at 14,000 RPM, insanely high for a 4-stroke engine of that era. But the technical insanity didn't stop there. The main chassis used a monocoque aluminum frame, lightweight yet incredibly torsionally rigid. The rear swing arm was a single-sided cast alloy, paired with Showa upside-down forks and dual 310mm front disc brakes, comparable to GP racing bikes of the time. The entire body was constructed from carbon fiber, a material that, in 1992, was still reserved for fighter jets and Formula One. Every element, from the windscreen, exhaust tips, Alcantara seat, to the LCD instrument cluster, was handcrafted, and no two bikes were exactly the same. It even featured cruise control, intake air temperature sensors, and electronic exhaust valves, tech that wouldn't reach mainstream bikes until over a decade later. Its dry weight came in at just 489 pounds, but more important was how it felt. As smooth as a scalpel, as precise as a Swiss watch. In fact, riders often compared piloting the NR750 to flying a mini jet. Not noisy or wild, but controlled power in its purest form. However, performance was where it drew criticism. With about 125 horsepower, the NR750 wasn't significantly faster than much cheaper rivals like the Yamaha FZR 1000 or Suzuki GSXR 1100. In fact, some lighter two-strokes accelerated quicker off the line. This led many to ask, why pay double for a bike that isn't faster? In its very first year of release, owning the NR750, as mentioned in the introduction, meant shelling out over $50,000. For motorcycle enthusiasts in the early 1990s, that was a jaw-dropping price. To put it in perspective, top-tier competitors of the time, like the Yamaha FZR 1000, Suzuki GSXR 1100, or even the Ducati 888, all famous and powerful machines, cost half as much or even less. But the problem wasn't just the price. The NR750 didn't participate in any major races, didn't win trophies, didn't break speed records, and in real-world terms, wasn't any more powerful than bikes that cost a fraction of it. With roughly 125 horsepower and a top speed of around 160 miles per hour, the NR750 was often labeled beautiful but useless. It felt like a design from the future stuck in the present, too intricate to maintain, too expensive to mass produce, and too unique for anyone to fully understand its purpose. The biggest question at the time was, who actually needed a bike like this? And unfortunately, Honda never provided a clear answer. The NR750 wasn't marketed widely, had no memorable slogan, no racing presence, and certainly no promotional campaign to help the public understand what was behind that $50,000 price tag. For everyday riders, it was an impossible dream. For hardcore engineers and performance fans, they wanted something they could push to its limits, not just admire from behind glass. As a result, only about 300 units of the NR750 were ever built. Most of them weren't ridden regularly. They were kept in private collections, display showrooms, or locked away in storage. Things got even worse when it came to ownership costs. Maintenance was borderline absurd. From adjusting 32 valves and replacing custom oval pistons to managing the dual ECU electronic systems. And within that chaos, a quiet rift began forming deep inside Honda's own walls. On one side were veteran engineers who believed the NR750 had strayed too far from real-world demands. To them, the company was rewarding itself with a project that had no clear market, no path to profitability, and no tangible impact on racing. Yes, the NR750 was a technical marvel, but it didn't belong in the real world. On the opposite side were younger engineers, many of whom had once failed with the NR500, now given a second chance to redeem themselves. To them, the NR750 wasn't just a machine, it was a statement, a symbol, a monument of revenge for their earlier failure, and because of that, there could be no compromise, no simplification, no budget cuts, no mass production. Tensions escalated to the point where senior members refused to sign off final stages. Some requested to be reassigned, and others were quietly removed for no longer aligning with the vision. This internal war forced Honda to make a decisive choice. The NR750 would not go mainstream. No racing, no advertising, no press tours. It would exist purely as a limited-run product for those who could truly appreciate what it was. But ironically, that very decision sealed the fate of the legacy they were trying to preserve. No one outside knew what Honda was trying to say with the bike. No one stood up to defend it publicly. And so, like a fracture left untreated, the NR project quietly disappeared. Not because it failed as engineering, but because the very people who built it couldn't agree on why it should exist. Today, while many superbikes from the 1990s have been forgotten or sit rusting away in salvage yards, the NR750 has taken the opposite path. Its value continues to soar over time. Units that remain completely original, with unopened engines and proper documentation, now sell for $200,000 to $350,000, 4 to 6 times their original price. One example, previously featured on Jay Leno's show, was valued at over $500,000. What transformed a bike, once mocked as too expensive and pointless, into a coveted collector's item? The answer lies in 2 words: truly unique. The NR750 is the only production motorcycle in history to use oval pistons, a technical marvel no one has dared to replicate. It's more than a mode of transport. It's a reminder of an era when engineering came before profits, when designers weren't shackled by finance departments or marketing teams. And because of that misfit nature, the NR750 never became outdated, because it never really belonged to any particular era. Collectors don't see the NR750 as a motorcycle. They see it as mechanical art, a street-legal prototype, something that happened only once in history. But the legacy of the NR750 doesn't end at auction prices. Though commercially unsuccessful, it laid the technical groundwork for countless innovations in modern motorcycle design. From dual ECUs, electronic fuel injection, carbon bodywork, monocoque aluminum frames, to the very idea of a hyperbike meant to be admired more than raced. These all debuted on the NR750. Models like the VFR 750, RC51, CBR 1000RR, and even concept MotoGP machines owe some part of their DNA to this machine. Even young Honda engineers today admit, without the NR750, the foundation for future breakthroughs wouldn't have existed. The NR750 became a forgotten legend, yet quietly shaped an entire generation. It didn't need to win races. Its mere existence was a triumph of pure creative spirit. A bike not meant for the masses, yet respected by millions. Proof that sometimes the most beautiful, most extraordinary things are those no one could truly understand at the time they were born. The Honda NR750 wasn't the fastest motorcycle nor the best-selling, but it was one of the rare machines built on ideals, on engineering pride, on the burning desire to prove that limits were made to be broken. In a world increasingly driven by practicality and numbers, the NR750's very existence feels like a statement that beauty doesn't always need to be understood, it just needs to be respected. If you believe this bike deserves to be remembered, leave a comment below. Do you think the NR750 is a forgotten masterpiece, or simply Honda's failed experiment? Don't forget to like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel if you want more deep, strange, and inspiring stories from the world of motorcycles.